Hi everybody, welcome to Dandelion Cottage and Watercolor Wednesday. I'm Leslie Watkins. I hope you're well. I hope you're having a great week so far. Today we're going to do a pretty little bouquet, fresh from the garden. So these are Helianthus and Nepeta and Alchemia. And the way they look in the garden right now is just lovely. It's just a very soft, kind of impressionistic, foamy, light, beautiful, sort of hazy effect, okay? And I want to capture that in the painting today. So I'm going to be using a wet and wet method. I've already moistened my paper a little bit, so hopefully it will be ready to go. And I'm just using three colors, red, yellow, and blue. And this is just going to be a fast, light, loose, kind of joyful impression. And after it dries, I'm going to use it to make something on Saturday. So you'll want to tune back here again on Saturday at 12 noon to see what I make with this. I think that's about it, so let's get started. So, there is one thing. So today is the first of the month, which means that notes went out today with July's classes listed in it. So if you're interested in learning more about the classes that I have to offer, please go to dandelioncottagedesign.com and subscribe to notes, and you will get a copy of it in your email, and it will list 3 wonderful classes I have coming up, and one of them is called Beginning Watercolor, and it's really a very, very beginning, basic, fundamental class for anyone who's ever been interested in learning a little something more about watercolor. So if that appeals to you, you won't want to miss it, because this is going to be a great start for you. And with that, we'll get going. So here's my paper. I've got a little bit of a shadow here from the bouquet, so I'm going to move those over. See if we can, that's a little better. All right, now let me check my connection, make sure that we're broadcasting. Yes, very good. Okay, so just to give you a quick peek at my palette, you see there's really nothing here. It's just yellow, red, and blue. And I'm using a sable brush. And off to the side, I just have a couple of containers of water, and I have a sponge, and I'm going to simply begin by mixing up some puddles of color on my palette. So I'm starting with the yellow. So let's just see. Okay, so already the paper has dried a little bit, so that's okay. I actually like the way it's behaving here. So I'm going to stand up because I want to have full motion with this. And I'm just going to begin to indicate the shapes of some of these flowers. So I'm using the brush, the tip of the brush, to create the petal shapes. And I'm just gonna scatter the page with these lovely Helianthus. And the bees are loving the Nepeta. There are so many bees out there today. It makes me so happy. Now, I want to vary the position of the flowers so we get a little indication of the various directions that they're all pointing in. Okay, and what I'm interested in doing here is creating an all-over pattern on the paper. So think wallpaper, think design. Here we go. Alright, so we're getting there. A couple more. This is just the start. And I'm going to make this very splashy today. So anyone can do it. It's not hard. It helps if you've got better quality materials. I strongly recommend that you use professional quality paints and brushes and paper for your best results. I'm just going to dab in some of the centers. And let that swirl around a little bit. Okay, now let's go after some of the alchemia. So alchemia is a wonderful plant for the garden. It makes a lovely ground cover, and it has these beautiful little tiny chartreuse flowers. And let me see if I can get a little spatter going there. Try to get the impression of the texture. So all I'm doing is I'm just putting a little indication where the flowers would be, and then just adding a little spatter to indicate that texture of the tiny little. Sometimes you hear them described as foamy, and it's true. When you look at them from a distance, you do get the impression that it's kind of like a sea foam in the garden. Okay, so now let's add some of our nepeta. So I'm just going to make a mixture with the red and blue to get a nice violet color. But this nepeta is a very pale violet, almost a lavender, so I'm going to dilute that way down. Let's see what this looks like. That'll do it. Okay, so now the nepeta is on these spiky stalks, and the flowers come off in whorls. So we want to get that kind of impression. And I think that I think you can see how when we add the blue-violet tone to the design, it really helps to perk up the oranges and yellows in those helianthus. I'm painting with natural light, and that makes a big difference. That's a little too dark, so I'm just adding a little more water. There we go. So really, I'm letting the brush do all the work here. It's just the tip of the brush is just sort of dancing across the page. I want to I want to just pay attention to the edges of the paper because I may need, for my project on Saturday, I may need a little bit extra. So I'll make sure that there's plenty. There we go. Okay, that's coming along. Maybe a couple more here. All right, now I'm also going to take some of this violet mixture and put some of those spatters around. And I'm just hitting the brush on my finger. Just gently tapping. And you want to vary the direction a little bit so it doesn't all look like it's going the same way. And actually, I think we could use a bit more of that chartreuse. So let's grab a little of that. So I've got my yellow, a drop of blue, let's see what that does. All right, I think we can improve the shapes of some of these by adding a little bit around them. So this is a really quick and easy way that you can take a little bit of paint and just create a nice cheerful pattern. For your projects, whether it be a box or an envelope or a card front or whatever, gift bag. You can do this with ink, just the same, just as I'm doing here, so that you have a perfect coordination with your card stocks and so forth. Okay. All right, so that's the beginning. I've got my paper covered fairly well. And now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add a little bit of detail. So I'm going to start with some yellow and blue and make a nice green. This is a medium green, just a touch of red in it so it's not too bright. And I'm grabbing a paper towel to dry my brush off a little bit. So now I'm just going to start to put some indications of some stems in here. Just some little straight lines here and there, not a solid line, but just an indication. Right, and then the same for our helianthus. And I can put some leaves. Okay, now some of these, there's a couple of odd spots here and there where we can add a leaf shape to help pull it together as needed. And I think we can add a couple of little dark accents to those leaves at the base. Just let that swirl around a little bit, like so. And let's get back to the center of these flowers. So I'm going to make a kind of a brownish orange mixture. It's still a little wet to hold its shape, so I'm not going to be able to get all the little stamens and pollen and texture right now. That's okay, not necessary. And I want to add a little bit of the blue-violet accent to my Nebeta here and there, just a little bit to vary it slightly. Now, of course, you could do a much more careful study and let this dry and then come back. But I really like the way it's looking right now, just as a kind of a background, kind of a cheerful, summery garden effect. Let's put another flower up here. There we go. Uh-oh. Big dog, somebody's here. It's a delivery. It's exciting. Okay. All right, so I think that'll do it for today. After this dries for a little bit, I may go into some of these petals. Let's see if I can do it. I don't know if it's dry enough, but I'll try to illustrate what I want to do. See, some of these petals have these little pleats in them. So not all the flowers are dry enough for me to be able to do this. But I think you can get the idea here. I can zoom you in. So I think you can see the beginning of a little more drawing there. Maybe this flower might be, this one might be dry enough. No, they're all just a little too wet. So in the finished picture that you see with the with the video, you will see how these flowers look once I spend a couple more minutes developing some of the petals and the centers. But that's how you get started. So thank you so much for joining me today. And stay tuned for Saturday for part 2, when we take our watercolor and turn it into a paper crafting project. Don't forget to go to DandelionCottageDesign.com and subscribe to Notes from Dandelion Cottage. That's my monthly newsletter that has all of my class information and registration information in it. There's a description and there's many different options. So for each class, there can be up to 3 or 4 different options that you can choose from. So there's something for everybody. So thank you so much. Stay well, stay creative, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.